this out to Top 10 Production Stream. That's the channel.
Now, why don't we introduce ourselves, Noah, since people might be new to us, and what's our, we can give them an idea of our perspective, our biases, and where we're coming from.
Okay. Now, Frank, you're asking in terms of who we are as people, human, citizenship, American.
45 seconds or less, what do they need to know about you so they can sort of label you, even though I don't like labels and I don't like boxes, but they can sort of label you and say, okay, this guy is a blank, and that's maybe shapes or influences his perspective of all the different topics we're going to tackle.
Fair enough. Well, let me just first start to say I
can introduce you.
Well, you know what? I kind of just put my foot in my mouth. You can add in what I miss. I was born a Texan. Somehow I found myself in New York City for the last 20-something years. And one of my fellow Marine buddies that I was working with said, I want to show you this crazy art form, this martial art form. And so I went with him to Henzo's. And that was when I was about 270 pounds and full of issues. And started on this journey. I want to say it was like 2007 or 2009 that I started. 2007. But I went in there, I want to say less than 10 times over 3 years.
Henzo Gracie's Academy.
At Henzo Gracie Academy on 30th, now known as the Blue Basement. And I feel a sense of guilt, of that is because of just putting myself out there was hard. It just hurts so much.
Getting yourself to go train.
Yes, and that's quite apropos. But anyways, I took way longer. That's just me in a nutshell.
What about
but a fat nutshell.
Power of books and knowledge and philosophy and principles and
all that other stuff. All that other stuff. Well, I do read a lot, but I listen to audiobooks more. But we'll get into that.
Wife's earning her PhD, on track to earn a PhD. So anyway, you're an interesting guy. We met because we were at the gym, and we wind up talking about fighting and jiu-jitsu, and then here we go, 6 years forward, and now we're shooting podcasts.
I think how I met you was at Whole Foods on Las Vegas Boulevard.
I think it was Lifetime. We met.
That was the follow-on.
Was it?
Yes, I met you first at Lifetime. I think you might be right. I don't know.
We met at Lifetime Gym spontaneously. Then we went to Whole Foods and we're having like lunch and conversation.
Yeah.
I never heard somebody talk so passionately about accounting. Everybody I know, a lot of people that are accountants, they're like, oh, it's boring, and they do it because maybe it pays them well. But you were the first person I ever met that actually you would glow. You had a glow about you, and you would light up when you talked about accounting and forensic accounting. And I was like, wow, this guy's really interesting. So, I thought of the book, The Man Who Loved Numbers. And I thought, well, God, I met the man who loved numbers. So I thought, wow, I know passionate about their thing. And I honestly didn't think that you would stay so passionate about fighting or jiu-jitsu. I wasn't convinced of that. That didn't matter because you were an interesting guy, you were a good guy, you were honest, which I like. But as it happens, you have stayed true to, you've always been into jiu-jitsu, and not just jiu-jitsu as the fighting art, but jiu-jitsu as the building confidence and all of the beautiful intangible and qualities and principles that go into it. That's even more, getting comfortable outside of your comfort zone, that sort of thing. I saw that in you when I first met you, is that you were into it for the intangibles, for the deeper reasons, but I didn't know if you'd stick with it, and here you are sticking with it, and you got your blue belt, and you're taking private lessons, you're still training out there, Enzo, and some of your coaches out there in New York. What guy fought in UFC? What is his name? Sapo.
Oh yeah, hot file is top on the towel.
Yeah,
Well, thank you, Frank. Thank you, Frank, for filling in some of the. Yeah, I didn't say a lot of those things.
okay.
It's just the average, your regular. People tell me you look like that guy, and I don't watch much TV, so I get and I hear people say I look like this guy, that guy, and what they always refer to me, and I look it up later on. It's usually like, oh yeah, the suburban dad. It's just a typical suburban dad looking guy.
Well, I
So
think what's interesting about you is if people don't know you, if they saw you on Monday morning when you go to work and you're carrying that big duffel bag and you're walking down Wall Street or whatever you're doing, Manhattan, wherever, people, you can look intimidating, right? You're a big, burly, muscular guy and you got a bald head. And so you can look intimidating, but you're actually a very friendly and affable guy. So that's something that I think a lot of people, at first glance, you might look intimidating, but you're kind of a teddy bear.
teddy bear, yes, yeah. Joe Rogan likes to say, what women want are they want a guy who's smart, funny, but it'll protect them. And so his punchline there is what they want is a clown ninja.
Are you saying you're what women want? Is that what you're saying?
No, 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 no. I was just saying I'm a cuddly teddy bear that that might put you in a head and arm triangle.
I know you're spoken for. You're
Oh yeah, I'm spoken for. Yeah, no, that actually, I wanted to bring up the true
let the
ninja.
ladies down gently. Let them down gently.
The true ninja of the crowd is
Don't let him fall too far.
Noah's happily married.
yes, yeah, definitely. The true ninja of the crowd is Mr. Jordan Wirth.
I'm a ninja.
Definitely,
That's a good compliment. I'll take that.
you're definitely the ninja. Look at how tall are you?
I am 6 foot.
And man, and you're all arms and legs. Just slap on a choke.
My arms aren't as long as people think that they are. Like I have like alrightly long arms, but for a person 6 foot, my arms aren't near as long. My reach isn't near as long as a person that's as tall as me usually. A lot of people think my arms are longer than they actually are. I do have kind of long legs, and they're flexible, so that helps me a lot.
Yes. Okay, you say they're flexible. Let's just put that into context. Um, you can do most yoga moves, more yoga moves than a yoga teacher. We'll just throw it down like that.
Yes and no. For my knees, yes, I can do more than like the average person for sure. But my hips are a little bit more flexible than average. But my hips, I have a lot of issues with. Like I can't do the splits. I can't do a lot of things with my hips. My hips, I need to work on my hip flexibility personally.
It doesn't show because you just strangle people with your legs. I was looking at that
Yeah.
video again the other day of the lockdown and that knee pop.
Oh man,
Oh my
that poor guy.
goodness. Yeah. So a little bit more
That's
about
so
you.
bad.
Frank, why don't you do the introduction for Jordan? You were very nice with me. Thank you.
Jordan and gosh, it seems like I've been training with Jordan for the last, I don't see, it feels like 6 years. And
I think it has
I've
been.
seen Jordan come of age, like from a teenager, like, I almost feel like he's like like my nephew or something. 'Cause I've trained
Appreciate
with
that.
him back when he was an easy roll and I could do whatever I want to now where, he's even in the last couple of years, he's just super dangerous. He's very unpredictable. He's a brown belt in the Eddie Bravo system, Eddie Bravo does not hand out those belts. I mean, you got to really belts. You got to put the time in. He's in the right system. I mean, I think that's a very important thing for people out there is to pick the. There's a lot of good academies, say here in Las Vegas. We're very lucky. We've got a lot of world-class instructors, but you've got to pick the place that fits your personality, the culture, or maybe the style that they teach. And no, I mean, Jordan always knew that, and I think you can tell him too. Like you're a 10th-planet guy. He always knew it. He never wavered. It's a perfect system for him. He has been wearing the gi a little bit more. I saw him in the brown belt when we had
Every
one
once
of
in a
our
while. Every once
recent
in a
like
while.
training sessions, and it's kind of weird because he got his hair chopped. Right, I'm used to seeing him with the wild heavy metal hairdo, and now he got his hair cut, and now he's wearing gis every once in a while, so he looked like a stranger. But you know, he's always been a guy with a lot of talent, somebody that a lot of people don't know who he is, but everybody in Vegas, he's a lot of who's two and a lot of really good grapplers here. I think he's kind of a one to watch, I would say. You know, a guy to watch. Did a lot of maybe flying under a lot of people's radars, but you know, I learned a while back when I was training with him, even when I was black belt. I will not mount for instance. I will not mount because I think
A lot of people say that.
Mounted me. He did some crazy wacky heel hook from the bottom and trapped my ankle, and I wound up trapping myself. So he's a very unorthodox role, and I expect him to get a lot better. Very young, and of course he fights amateur too. And he's got some shade to the Diaz brothers, where he's got a lot of the showmanship, the hands down, and what. And there's a lot of bravado. He's a brave guy. So it's just been, you know, very. I enjoy seeing him grow and develop, and I think he's going to continue to do. I mean, I'm expecting for him to be somebody that people, you know, like, wow, he's like one of those guys you just have to watch grapple. Hopefully he gets bigger, super fights and everything, because you really don't know. He has sort of that don't know what he's going to do next.
Yes.
You know, he's a dangerous guy. He's a finisher. He fights to finish. He's not a point scorer. He's coming to take you out. He's coming to finish you. And he was going with the knees and the ankle heel hooks back when it wasn't as popular. I mean, yeah, Ted Planet was doing it, and Gordon Ryan was doing it, and some others, and you know, Usman Bahars was doing it. And you know, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. So Jordan was really for the young guy, for a guy his age, he was somebody who always believed in that and always doubled down and always embraced it. And now it's in full bloom, right? A lot of people are now chasing those ankles and those heel hooks, but he's been doing that since I know him. I mean, you had to watch ankles around this guy 5-6 years ago when I was training. You had to watch, you know, your heels. He would try to take your heel home with him. So very unorthodox, very extremely flexible. And one thing he has, we were talking about this the other day, he has a hand size and a hand strength that can give you problems. You know, it's like sometimes, I mean, right now, because Jordan's younger, I do have a lot more technical knowledge in general in my brain. But when you grapple with him, you can't always use all of that technical knowledge, because he's got things like that unorthodox flexibility, and he's got those hands that just kind of blunt you, kind of negate some of what you want to do. Because when he grabs things, like, man, you know, this guy's grips are, he's got just these naturally big hands and paws. So it's one thing to watch guys roll on videotape. It's another thing to roll with them. And some guys, even like John Jones, doesn't look strong when you watch him on video. He doesn't always look strong until you see him slam Daniel Cormier, and you're like, oh my God, John Jones is strong. Or he slams Devin Booker on his head, you know, suplexes him, right? But if you just look at John Jones walk in the cage, it doesn't like scream like this guy is bionic, super strong. But if you get out there and you train with him, oh my God. And I think Jordan's one of those guys too. If you look at him, he just looks like, you know, kind of like a young punk. He just woke up, whatever. But this guy will take your heel home with him, and he's very unpredictable, and he is dangerous in the finish. So.
Well, yeah, I appreciate all that, Frank. That was a nice little bring up. That was a nice startup. So like Frank was saying, I always try and be dangerous. When I first started training and I was a white belt, I never believed in not being able to submit the person. Like, I always thought it was dumb, like when somebody would tell me, like, oh, the only thing you can do in this position is escape, or the only thing you can do in this position is pass, like in the full guard. Oh, the only thing you can do in full guard is pass. You can't submit somebody in their full guard. I was like, that's not true. There's got to be a way to submit somebody in the full guard. There's like, why not? Like, it may be difficult, but it's not impossible. So like the same thing I do in like the full mount and the full guard is I can bring my feet across your hips and cross them by your belly button, and then I can push them, and now we're in a leg locking position where both of your legs are able to be heel hooked. And I can do that inside somebody's guard full. So I'll post my arm and then post my arm across their hip and feed my foot to my hand, and then I can start to heel hook them from inside their full guard. It'll open up the legs, and then we're in a leg locking situation where I have the upper hand. That's how I've always thought. I've always thought, like, if I'm alive, I have 2 arms and 2 legs. I don't care if I'm in bottom side control, bottom mount. If you have my back, I'm trying to submit you. I'm not trying to get to like a position where I'm going to get score points or anything like that. I'm trying to end the fight. You know, I'm always trying to finish. I always believed in always getting the finish. If I can't finish the person, I didn't feel like I won. Like if I beat the person 4-2 and I got mount and took them down and they swept me, but I won by 4-2, I don't feel like I truly won. Like if somebody else has to tell you that you won the fight, like a referee or scorekeeper or something, you didn't truly win the fight. You know what I mean? Somebody else had to tell you that you won. I want the person to submit or tap and say, okay, no more. And then that way it's clear. I know that I won the fight. I was the better fighter that day. Um, but yeah, so this is supposed to be like an introduction of who I am. I'm born in Henderson, born and raised here.
Excuse me, guys.
No problem.
Yeah, keep going, George. Might as well.
I'm born in Henderson, born and raised here. I lived here literally all my life in the same neighborhood. When I first started training, there wasn't a 10th Planet out here. I was 15 years old. There was no 10th Planet out here. And I went to a gym called Sunset Boxing MMA next to Galleria Mall. And the instructor there was named LJ. He was a Mika purple belt. And at the time, this guy was like the best guy I've ever rolled with. I couldn't believe how good he was. And I still believe to this day he was really, really good purple belt. But anyway, I was there and I was training, and he was like, "Here, we're gonna go over this thing called the rubber guard today. This guy Eddie Bravo created it. I think it'll work really good for Jordan because Jordan's real flexible." And so he went over the rubber guard, he went over gogo plata and omoplata, and I remember just being completely fascinated. Like, wow, like this is the coolest thing ever. I want to know more, coach. Like, what else can you do from the rubber guard? And my coach, being a Mika purple belt, was like, buddy, that's really all you could do from the rubber guard. There's not much else you can do. And I was like, oh, really? And he was like, yeah, like this guy named Eddie Bravo created it. They have a system called 10th Planet. And that was all I was told. And so I went home and I rubber guard YouTube. Typed in rubber guard to YouTube. And I learned about Eddie Bravo and the 10th Planet system, and boom, 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 a bunch of videos popped up. And I figured out that the whole 10th Planet system was online on YouTube for free. And so I just started watching video after video after video after video. And I would spend hours a day just watching all sorts of 10th Planet videos. And I taught myself the 10th Planet system online. And there's also a thing called the Mastering the System on the 10th Planet website that Eddie Bravo posts all of the techniques from HQ, the most important ones, every month. He makes a new video. So the whole system is systemized online that you can pay, and it's only $5 a month. So I was paying for the Mastering the System and watching all the YouTube videos, and I taught myself the 10th Planet system by myself on my own because the whole system was online. And then I started getting 10th Planet rash guards and like competing, doing all the 10th Planet moves. I was on the 10th Planet forum, and I was just waiting for 10th Planet Las Vegas to open up. Even before 10th Planet Las Vegas opened up, I knew it was going to open up. Like 6 months before it was going to, I caught wind in John Freeman's garage. Somebody, what was his name? I forgot his name at the moment, but somebody in John Freeman's garage was like, "Hey, like Jordan, like I know you like 10th Planet. Like there's this guy named Casey that's supposed to be opening up a 10th Planet out here." And I was like, "What? Seriously? Like I know a lot of 10th Planet black belts. I've never heard of a Casey." And they're like, "No, no, yeah, yeah. This guy's supposed to be opening up 10th Planet Las Vegas. Here's his Facebook. Go add him online, talk to him." And so I talked to Casey like a couple months before they even opened up, and I was like, "Hey, like I heard you're supposed to be open 10th Planet. What's up?" And he was like, "Yeah, like I don't know how you heard, but like we're supposed to be going down there. Like that's awesome. You're interested." And I was their first student, like literally before they even opened up. My boss, who also trains jiu-jitsu, his name's Rusty. You know Rusty. He was my boss at the time. He
One of the
heard the 10th Planet.
one of the strongest grips I've ever felt.
Yes, for sure, because of his job. He's a fitness technician. All he does is lift fitness equipment, commercial grade treadmills, like commercial grade fitness equipment, and lifts it up and down stairs. That's what I was doing for 2 years. And at the time, I was doing that with him.
Monkey power, not a big guy.
Oh man!
My goodness, he's got that monkey grip. And again, he's my size. He's a 150-pound guy. Basically a mechanic who's always doing all this stuff with his hands and picking up heavy things.
And he's a small guy. He's little. He's only like 135 pounds probably. And his grip, you were talking about my grip strength, my big hands. When
No,
Rusty grabs onto my
your
hand,
hand size is more the thing. His grip power, yours
his
is
grip
just
power is
the
ridiculous.
size of how you can put your hand, get control, and his is just pure power, pure monkey power.
Monkey strength is a really good way to describe Rusty. He's a little guy, but he is so explosive and so strong. Yeah, that's a good guy. He's
got
brown
another
belt now too.
game with, because he's got that special power, he can choke you from weird angles too, and in ways that maybe you don't expect. Same thing.
Rusty will do no-gi baseball bat chokes from like bottom side control. Will strangle you. Rusty will do no-gi Ezekiel's.
So he can, he's got one hand in it and he'll choke you as you pass. Just kind of very, very deceptive.
Yeah. Very, very deceptively strong for sure.
Well, Frank, I want to jump in here and lead in for a little bit about Frank. Frank, I didn't know much about you initially, and it's literally your story, your life narrative is it reads like an inspirational It reads like an inspirational biography, and I find out things about you all the time that are just wow. It's just your background and from that we got in a conversation when we did our last meetup a week or two ago, and I still I'm learning more about your background. So a few notes that I know about you off the top of my head. You're out of Baltimore, and you've got a background in wrestling. I'll just say just a little bit about that. You have a bit of a background in wrestling, but to push that a little further, your jiu-jitsu is world class. You're a 3-time IBJJF Masters World Champ. You have over 250 competition wins. You've branched out. And I don't know what time in your life's timeline that you were you'd gotten really close with Dana White of the UFC, and you're staff writer with them, among other venues, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas Review. You've been a correspondent, and I know you've gone to the White House and worked there before on assignment. But aside from that, your life story, the what I think of the grain of sand in the oyster. We all have that. We all have that, and it's what we do with it. What we do with that grain of sand. But that's really something to start from for you. If you would fill me, I'm still learning more and more about you. So if you could help, fill in some details there about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for that, Noah. So I am from Baltimore. It's a good time to be from Baltimore because you got the Ravens, right? The top seed, 14-2 record, and they're going to play next week, and they're the Super Bowl favorites right now. We'll see how that shakes out. But that's actually a big thing. They got 22-year-old Lamar Jackson, a guy almost Jordan's age, and he's just he's MVP of the league pretty much. And so, coming from Baltimore, I came from inner city Baltimore. I spent most of my formative years, the first 13, 14 years in the inner city Baltimore, white kid in a city that's 75% black. And that meant that it was hard to hide. It was hard, it's easy to stand out when you have blue eyes and hair like this, living in Baltimore. So I spent probably the first 13 years very scared, very afraid. And like a lot of people in my generation, I got into the martial arts because I just felt like you better be able to rap, and you better be able to fend off people that, Baltimore, you look at someone the wrong way, man. You look at them the wrong way, they're wanting to kick your head. And there's a lot of people that will kick your head in for looking the wrong way, So I was a small guy, skinny guy, and I just decided, like, hey, I better be lifting weights. I better wrestle. I better learn how to fight. We were putting on the boxing gloves, and we were watching a lot of boxing on TV. And so that was really the genesis of me getting started in this. And, wrestling was my first love, man. I grew up, if I had an idol, it was Dan Gable, and that was really my identity. All I wanted to do was wrestle and go to college to wrestle. And then that got taken away from me when I was 19. I went to college. I was at a Division I program, University of Maryland, and I got a 27-inch scar down my right leg. So that was the end of my wrestling career. My leg, I had, a lot of the muscle was cut out there. My leg did not perform anywhere near what it had been. So that really changed the whole trajectory of my life. I think I got into jiu-jitsu because I was sort of like what I would call love unrequited. I wanted so badly to be a wrestler, to be an All-American, to be a champion, and that was my identity. When that got taken away from me, it just haunted me. And then when jiu-jitsu came along, right, when the UFC came along with Hoist and what he was doing in 1996 or 1995, 1996, when I saw that and I thought, oh, wow, let's get to a jiu-jitsu gym. And that became like, because jiu-jitsu is different. With wrestling, my leg didn't have the horsepower to do it, right? I just didn't have it. But jiu-jitsu is so versatile where you can adapt it. You can be, you can be anything. You can be not athletic. You can be one arm. You can be no legs. You can do whatever, and you can adapt it. You can be old. You can be young. You can adapt it. It's so versatile and so adaptable to your body type, to your strengths, to your IQ. It's so versatile, and so jiu-jitsu gave me this second life. This something that had been taken away from me when I was younger. So that's really my genesis.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
On the life level, you're right. I was a philosophy major in college. I was a journalist for newspapers in Las Vegas and Salt Lake, and I've been able to go to the White House and meet people like Gorbachev and Sly Stallone. I had the pleasure of working with Dana White here in Las Vegas for a couple of years. That was fascinating. That was before the UFC blew up really big. And, Dana is a very fascinating guy. Lorenzo Fertitta then treated me, I was treated very well there. That was a front row seat to history, what I think is the best corporate comeback story in all of business. I don't think there's a better corporate. They're dead on the deathbed, right? And the flatline business, ready to throw in the towel, ready to tap out, and bam, then they wind up selling for $4.2 billion. So I've been really lucky about that. But on the other hand, I'll say this for the purposes of us moving forward. I feel like I scratched the surface like a lot of us. I feel like we've all scratched the surface. I don't rest on my laurels, and I've got a lot of room for expansion and improvement, and that's really where I am in my life. I feel like I've wasted, as much as I've done some cool stuff, I feel like I've wasted a lot of my talent. So this season, this part of my life is really about how do I maximize, how do I optimize the gifts, and how do I play bigger? How do I live up to my potential? And I think that's something that everybody watching and you, so Jordan, you, me, all of us can identify, hey, there's a lot more left to squeeze out of ourselves. And how do we do that? Because all of those things we've done before, and some of those are cool and some of those are awesome, but guess what? They don't last. It's like, what's here? What's now? What's in front of you, right? Like, how do you do it bigger and better? And how do you continuously improve? And that's really where my focus is now. Is like, it's right here, right now, and what's on the horizon.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I said the O because that made me think of, when my dad. I was in. I graduated boot camp in the Marine Corps. It was in January of '92, January 31st, and for 10 days thereafter, I was on leave, and then I came, during that 10 days, I saw my father in the hospital, and the first time I'd seen him in a while, and he had one of his legs shriveled the size of my wrist, and then I was only home for 10 days, and I had to go back out to training for. It's just a follow-on training that the Marine Corps was doing at that time, 6 weeks in the hills there in Oceanside. But I say that because he passed away during that time. I was home on emergency leave, and when you lose your father, you grow up, without a father, and you actually lose your father. At 19, I developed a sense of, my motto wanted to live by was live without regret. I'm in my late 40s now, and I can tell you that I do have a lot of regret. A lot of regret of giving into the fear, giving into perfectionism, giving into a lot of those things. And, you know, that initial piece of sand inside of me when I was younger, through the years of the intervening 25 something years since then, have polished that in a way where it doesn't polish it to make it better. I want to say in a sense that, you know, when you hit your 40s, you get a little dull. You get a little dull. You've settled back into where you are in your life and where things are. You've settled in and gotten comfortable. And, you know, doing things gets hard. You know, it gets hard again. It's difficult to get up and go to do jits after work. You know, it gets hard to change your habits. It gets hard to do that. So, I find this podcast and what we've been doing lately, we've been talking, I'm revisiting, you know, my second life now. You know, I've got a whole fresh piece of sand inside of me now to make a pearl. And I want, you know, I have the strengths of the past, but they're not serving me anymore. They're no longer my strengths. You know, I am going to be baseline now. I'm going back to where I was when I was 19, without a father, without, you know, without all the knowledge and wisdom that I've gained. I'm going to throw that out now in this conversation. I'm going back to baseline, you know? This is the year that we do this. And I would ask each of you.
What makes it, Noah, it's not only that we get into routines and we get stuck in whatever's been working for us, we get stuck in that same routine. We stop growing, but it's also that other people, when they look at you, they know your age, and they just sort of assume that you are what you are, and you're not going to grow or develop substantially.
Yeah.
And most people just think, hey, if you haven't figured it out by now, and you're not doing those great things by now, you're not going to.
That's right.
So society also looks at you like, yeah. Now, it's beautiful that we have the three different characters here right now, because we have Jordan, that's just, the world is brimming with possibility, and he's coming of age, and the world is his oyster, and everything he wants is there for the taking. He's got youthful optimism, and that's beautiful, right? And he's at the ideal, he's at that age where, and a lot of people will look at him and be like, I want to help that guy. He's young and he's impressionable, and, you know, it's going to be easy for Jordan to find mentors. He's so talented, and he's young and optimistic. When you get to be our age, not as many people want to be your mentor, and not as many people see a special gift. It's like, well, he is what he is. He's a forensic accountant guy, and he dabbles in jiu-jitsu, and he's kind of a philosopher. He reads a lot, and he's into sort of figuring out life and conquering your fears. But, you know, that's sort of him. And then people just kind of want to keep you in that little box and think, well, his best years ahead of him, he probably is a lot of what he's going to be. And so it's a lot of it comes from us, but a lot of it comes from the world too, where people just kind of look upon you as, well, you know, who is Noah? Well, Noah is pretty much whatever he is at this point. And is he going to grow by leaps and bounds over the next 20 years? Most people probably don't think so. Hopefully, they're wrong, and the best years of your life, the most incredible things you do, will be now in the next 20 years, 30 years. But that's a psychological battle that people have to fight, and a lot of people lose that battle. That's the key battle, which is, okay, is it too late, or have the best things passed me by? That's the kind of battle people like you and me have, which is, how great can it get from here on out? Is it possible my best years have passed me by? Can I ever overcome this fear that keeps rewinding and goes over and over, these things that sabotage me? Can I ever shut that voice up? I haven't figured it out by 45, 46, 50 years old. Can I ever figure it out? That's the battle we have. When you're young and you're Jordan's age, like, Jordan just expects to conquer everything. He doesn't have the 20 some years of I can't roll around in his head, or he has it sort of capped out and like, okay, it's like his ceiling is still astronomical. But there's a whole different battle that you and I have at our that's different from the battle with him. It's like Jordan just like monkey see, monkey do. It's in front of him. Let's kill, let's conquer, let's dominate. It's just fair. And he's really good at that. But so we're in a little different stage, I think. I'm taking the liberty to speak for you. We're in a different stage where a lot of those battles become even more psychological at our age because you're older and you're like, okay, I mean, if I haven't figured it out by now, what makes me think I'm going to figure it out?
That's a blocker. That's a blocking mentality. That is something, and it's hard to identify those things because you've played those video clips in your mind for so long that at the cellular level, they are interstate highways. It's locked in. And it's really hard to break out of those patterns. Jordan, you're making new habits and you're developing stuff into the grooves, and your natural talents are going to take you far. But it's what you do with those grooves that you continue to break, and how you break free of them. Frank, do you have any examples of your life where you've gotten into grooves and you found yourself needing to break out of them?
Bro, the past 8 years, the past decade, it's been, oh man, like I'm literally writing a book about the past decade. The past decade's been the most challenging in my adult life. When you're a kid, right? When you're a teenager, as rough as things can be, you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes things can be worse, but you're young and dumb, so you don't realize how bad things are sometimes, right? It's like, you're growing up and there's all these messed up things, but a lot of times you don't, you're just young, you just want to throw a football, you just want to throw a baseball, you just want to wrestle your friends, you just want to go date girls. You're not thinking about, oh my God, we could get evicted this month, right? How are we going to eat? You don't always think of that as much because you're distracted and you're young and somebody else has to figure out how to pay the rent, right? Like
it's freedom without limits.
Yeah.
Freedom without limits.
When you get to be our age now and you sort of awaken, I call it, when you awaken and you realize now you know what you didn't know, and life just kind of comes and just hits you upside the head. And, people that you love and you see things happen to them and there's nothing to do about it. So it's been the last 10 years, let's even look too. I mean, I'm 47. My best years in grappling. I mean, in terms of relative to the other guys out there, right? It's Mikey Musumeci's time. It's the other guys, these other young Brazilian guys coming up. It's their time. It's Jordan's time. I'm not going to beat the best of the best in jiu-jitsu. Maybe I get lucky one time or something in practice, but it's not going to happen. It's not my time. And so I even have to make peace with that. On top of the life things that are hard, you have to make peace with, and you have to get better at life. But in addition to that, I call this phenomenon in sports when the cheering stops. What do you do when that jiu-jitsu you relied on so much for therapy and the competitiveness of that kept you alive, that just gave life meaning? And that's pretty much gone. It's like, yeah, I can still do the Masters tournaments, but they're not going to be talking about Frank Forza. Like, they're not going to be sitting around talking about me like they talk about Marcelo Garcia or Eddie Bravo's best students or Gordon Ryan. They're not going to do that. That's really where I was chasing. I didn't get there, but that's what I was chasing. I was a competitive guy. I wanted to be the best I could be. I have to make peace with the fact that, hey, the way that I drew it up in my head didn't happen. And you have to move on to new things.
Those yes. The game plan, first game plan.
Exactly the way I wanted them to go. I haven't monetized jiu-jitsu in the same way that some others have. There's people out there making 6 figures and 7 figures in jiu-jitsu now, which is crazy. God bless them. They deserve it. I'm not making, most of my money's not made in jiu-jitsu. That's very hard too. It's like things that I wanted to work out a certain way didn't. But guess what? That's life. And we have to come to peace with that. And we have to say, we get mad, we get bitter, we get angry. And guess what we have to say again? We have to be accountable and say, hey, guess what? That's life. And how can I get better? I have to get
Yeah.
better. At the end of the day,
Take accountability.
I have to get better. The reality is, even at my age now, I have to grow new life skills. I have to grow new mental skills. I have to grow more grit, and I have to get better.
You're a wrestler. You don't need any
When the
more
charity
grit.
stops, though, at first it's hard, man. It's like your whole identity is tied up in jiu-jitsu tournaments and winning and loving testing yourself in practice. And you say, hey, guess what? You wake up one day and say, you know what? My body can't take that daily grind like that. I can still train, but my body can't train the way that I used to train or want to train. And so my body speaks to me and says, I need to heal, buddy. You beat me up a long time. What else can you do? And you say, well, I don't know what else I want to do. I love jiu-jitsu. What else am I going to do? But I'm in a phase of my life where a lot changed. A lot of things get taken away, but then there's things that are given. And so anyway, the last 10 years have been very challenging. Probably it forced me to pretty much blow everything up. Everything I thought I knew, I had to blow up. I think you'll relate to that. I had to blow up a lot of what I thought I knew, and I had to rebuild the whole foundation. But somebody like Jordan, I would say, I guess, talk about, I guess, Jordan, what are your daily challenges? Because just because you're young and the whole world is there for you, there've got to be, you've got your challenges too. What are some of the challenges that you deal with day in, day out?
I deal with a lot of challenges. I personally struggle with a lot of like confidence issues. Um, I like I'm confident in my skills, but I'm not always confident in myself, and that's what I always try to tell myself. I always try to be like, well, I know that jujitsu works. I know that I know that if I train this move, if I drill this move a bunch of times, that my body knows how to do this move, so that I don't necessarily have to be confident in myself. I know that the move works, and I know that I've drilled the move, that it should work, and that's where I try and get my confidence from. I try and be like, well, I know that jujitsu works. I know that I've been training jujitsu, so I know that I'm good at jujitsu. So it doesn't matter whether I think I'm a badass or not or whatever, this or that. That I should be able to still win on that day. I also struggle with just just lack of willing to go to training sometimes. Sometimes when you've been training so much, and I teach too, you know what I mean? You're doing like 4 hours of jiu-jitsu a day, 5 hours of jiu-jitsu a day. Sometimes I wake up and then it's mainly the morning sessions too. And once the day gets going, because that's probably honestly what I struggle with is I struggle with the mornings. I struggle getting up in the morning. I hate getting up in the morning. It's so hard for me. Once I'm getting up out of my bed, it's just like my timer goes off in the morning, and I'm like, man, I do not want to get up. Like, I just want to sleep for like another hour, just chill. My body needs to recover anyway. Like, what's gonna happen? And then I sleep, and then I wake up, and I'm like, man, I should have went to go train. So it's not even really like a lack of a will to go training. It's just like a laziness of wanting to sleep too much, I guess is what it really is.
You're probably like a night owl like me. Naturally,
Yes,
if
I
I
stay
could,
up really late.
Frank and Jordan, I gotta say, if I could, if I could, if I could banish anything, I would say it's this requirement that we have to have these it's really 8 to 6 p.m. mentality. I would my day, if I could control my day starts at 4 p.m. and goes until about 4 hours until noon. 4 a.m. or 4 p.m. to noon is when I would live my day. Getting in my there's my I don't know how many hours is that. No, that's only 4. No. How about it's at 8 a.m. 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. is about. I need some sleep in there too. I need 8 hours
What about
sleep.
that slogan? What about that Marine? Wasn't it the Marine slogan? We get more done by 8 a.m. than most people get done by.
That's Army. That's Army. Yeah, that's Army nonsense.
See?
Yeah, no.
In the Army. No, I'm kidding. All my Marine friends are going to want to beat me up now. What was the Army saying, by the way? What did they say? We get more done by.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't pay attention to that close. I just knew it was like there's no army of one. This army of one business. I don't know. See, that's the thing. They keep coming up with slogans. Why?
Always a new slogan.
Why?
Just to turn this to MMA, Matt Hughes, who had one of the best walkouts, right? The great Matt Hughes, 9-time welterweight UFC champion. He one of the shirts he used to come out. The Country Boy Can't Survive by was it Hank Williams Jr., which is a great walkout song. Country Boys Can't Survive because he's from Timbuktu, Iowa. But he would come out with the shirts that Army of One, and there was nothing like the BJ Penn walkout to fight Matt Hughes. Both walkouts, great, two of the best walkouts in the sports history. By the way, thanks for bringing up Army of One. That was the shirt Matt Hughes wore on Army of One.
Yeah, on a serious.
With all due respect, the Marines.
The Marines. We don't need slogans. Yeah, we don't need slogans. But in all seriousness,
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're here.
All right, sorry about that, guys. I got a phone call and they wouldn't stop calling me. I had to
Oh no, I didn't notice a thing.
While we have time, we got about 35 more minutes. We got to talk a little bit about Conor and Cerrone because we're here in Las Vegas, and that fight's coming up. And a lot of people think that Conor is drinking proper whiskey and got lazy, and I want to weigh in on that because I don't think Conor McGregor wins.
Has anyone tried that whiskey, by the way?
I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know of anyone who has.
I'm not a drinking man. I think
Right. It's not organic. It's definitely not organic. So if it's not organic,
organic alcohol at Whole Foods now. They have booze now. They're advertising.
I thought that's what kombucha was.
Apparently, my friends who do drink it say it's actually pretty good.
Okay, the Conor brand in general has taken a beating. I started looking. I haven't paid that close attention to all things fight related, but I did kind of go down a rabbit hole, and I noticed that there have been accusations of I would say off the mat, out of the octagon, with his behavior has been unhinged, and I think he's probably not proud of what's happened over the last couple of years with his behavior. I think that in time, wisdom will come about, and he will reflect upon it. And
he's not proud, but is he apologetic?
I don't know.
Yeah, but apparently he was on Ariel Helwani trying to make some amends. He was on the Helwani show fairly recently, the last few months, and trying to apologize for that. And I actually, again, when you have ego, right? Ego burns both ways. I mean, when you put somebody in a cage and you say, "Hey, try to be the best in the world," or what's the consequences for a bad day in a cage? World-class guys, if you go to the hospital, you piss blood. So I can see where a guy has to use every mental, egotistical tool and weapon at his disposal to make himself that. And then how do you turn that off? Right? On the one hand, you convince yourself you're Godzilla, you're the best, you're the greatest, and you develop sort of this just maniacal mentality, right, to beat anybody. On the other hand, how do you turn it off? And when a guy says, "Hey, I don't want to drink your proper whiskey," right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm around at Henzo's. I'm around Neiman, Igor. They're my professors, and Sapo. They're not flamboyant. They're not.
I think if you were around Conor in the gym, you would like him. Different guy at the press conference and right before the fight and during the fight. I think if you were around Conor at the gym, his teammates do like him. His coach likes him. Again, I'm turned off by some of the antics too, but I'm just saying from an understanding, right? There's not liking something someone does, but then there's also seeking to understand. Like I understand.
Okay.
He's been around fighting a long time. I get it. I understand it. My hope is that he'll figure it out and learn from it and become a better human being. But he does have that watchability. At the end of the day, Noah, there's a lot I hope the guy figures out for his own good. And I think at the end of the day, the worst victim of the crash and burn would be Conor himself. The worst victim, person who stands to lose the most from it all if it goes amok, is Conor himself, probably, right?
And his child, and his family.
Really quick, by the way. this is an interesting thing for this fight. So, a buddy of mine, we shot a podcast yesterday, and we were talking about Conor and Cerrone.
What's the name of your podcast again?
Huh?
What's the name of your podcast again?
I have one called Life Jitsu. We'll probably rename it, rebrand it for the people that are watching, whatever. If they want to help me rename it, that's great. But my friend Zach, we shot one yesterday, and we talked about this. And one thing, he saw Conor in a recent interview, and he said, Frank, Conor's his ears got way worse. He's obviously been training a lot more grappling. And if you go on Instagram, you can see he's been training a lot more in the gi. There's pictures of him in his brown belt with the gi. And he said, Frank, his ears just noticeably mangled now. He's been practicing a lot more ground game. And that, we've talked about that recently, because I think your ears now are starting to show a little bit more too, Jordan. Like I'm noticing that, a little bit more with your ears. But a guy like me has none. I wish I had some. You don't have much right now that I see, Noah. But Jordan's starting to get, I think Jordan's going to have more and more and more. But the interesting thing, people with cauliflower,
I'm going to train it.
People are so diehard for this sport, and they love this sport so much. You could take 3 or 4 days off, train them, and you probably would never have any cauliflower. But people love it so much, people won't even miss a day, right? Most people don't even bother to get their ears trained. Like, man, I don't want to miss training. People are that's how devoted our athletes are. Other sports, they'd be like, he's out for the next 4 days, ear injury, training his ears, so he doesn't get cauliflower. Fighters,
I just train them and then put some headgear on.
Yeah.
Which I've done in the past.
Well, how many times have you worn headgear your whole life?
For jiu-jitsu, probably only a week when I was repairing my heels from the drain.
Yeah. It's interesting how annoying headgear is. It really is annoying. I have a big ass, so I don't like it because of kind of chokes my Adam's out.
So I'm sorry to pull you off of talking about the fight. The reason why I said before in our first podcast that the things that about being on the mat and training jiu-jitsu, there's an alchemy that takes place, just like a yoga mat. There's an alchemy that takes place, and you get humbled. You develop so much about yourself. You start to question your life in wonderful ways, and really come down to its beauty is its meritocracy of the mats. Saying all that, let's talk about that fight for a moment. Will it go to the mats? Do you think is this a striking game? No. Tell me.
This is a great matchup for Conor. He knows it. The line on it, I think Conor was a little more than a 2-1 favorite. I think he should be closer to a 4-1 favorite. I don't like the fights from Donald Cerrone, who's an awesome fighter. I think he's the winningest fighter in UFC history, but he's 4-6 in his last 10. Tailor-made, comes forward, bad foot movement, bad head movement, slower than Conor. Cerrone historically has trouble with guys that are more athletic than him and they're elite strikers. Cerrone eats alive muscle-head, meathead guys who think they're strikers. He eats them alive. If Cerrone could take him down, Cerrone's takedowns have gotten solid. They're not spectacular. If he could take him down, whole different conversation. He can win that fight. But Khabib struggled to take Conor down and hold him down early on. He did. Right? Later, he got to Conor, but he struggled. I mean, Conor was way harder to take down. I don't see Cerrone taking him down. Cerrone has a great head kick combination that he throws. His head kick is dangerous. But if you're John Kavanaugh and Conor McGregor, you're going in. The first thing you're saying is, I'm not giving him the head kick. And so you already know how he sets it up with the jab and the head kick, and you're just saying, look, you're going to have to beat us with something else. We're not giving you the head kick. He's tailor-made. He comes forward. Conor, in his ideal, is a counter fighter. He's a counter fighter, and his left hand is nasty. If you walk into that, Donald Cerrone's never been a guy to dance and not come forward. He really comes forward. That's in his DNA. That's who he's going to come forward. He's going to eat some left hands, and I don't like it for him. I don't like the matchup for him. But Conor's kind of a no-man's land because, again, there's some matchups. I love Conor as a fighter, but again, there's some matchup. Tony Ferguson. I don't like the Ferguson matchup. I don't like To fight Khabib again, I think it'll be a tougher fight for Khabib the second time. I still pick Khabib, but I think Conor will be a tougher fight for Khabib because he already learned some things in that first fight. But Tony Ferguson, Jorge Masvidal, he's bigger than Conor. He's an elite boxer, by UFC standards, an elite boxer by UFC standards. He's got great cardio, great chin. I don't think Conor really. I don't know. I don't like that matchup for me. But
Why do you say by UFC standards for Jorge?
Yeah.
Jorge
Could be a pro boxer anywhere, but he's not going to be elite in pro boxing. He could be a pro boxer for sure.
Did you see Canelo kind of laughing at him like, "Oh, buddy, like there's no way we're really gonna fight. Like nobody would want to watch that." Did you hear Canelo talking about him?
Well, I don't know what to believe nowadays because a guy can laugh at a guy, and that can be part of promoting the fight. A lot of times,
That's
when
true.
they do this back and forth online, it's just trying to drum up the fight and build it. And so they'll be dismissive. They'll dismiss it. But that's part of a 6-month plan of slowly building the marketing machine for it. So you don't know what to believe at this point. It's like, is the guy really dismissing him, or did their representatives sit down and say, hey, let's have a 6-month build demand of pay-per-views. You do this, we'll do this, and then slowly we'll drum it up and make. That started with, remember Floyd and Conor? Once upon a time, before they fought, it was a joke. It was like Floyd's like, who is Conor? He's a joke. There's no money for me and whatever.
Yeah.
Turns out that was part of their marketing, tactics.
That's true.
So I don't know. All I know is if you could build it up. I mean, first of all, at the end of the day, Jorge Masvidal has the it factor, right? If you put a microphone in front of him, he has the it factor, so he can sell fights. I mean, he has a magnetism about him, a mesmerization quality about him. You're seeing that he's on ESPN with what's his name? Not Dan Raphael, the other guy, Dan something or another down there in Miami. They love him because he's a quote a minute. So if you build up that fight over 6 months with the Latin fan base, right? Canelo and the Mexicans, and remember, Canelo is the Mexicans. Masvidal is the Cubans. So usually fights do really well. They do really well. You do a Cuban, a Puerto Rican, and a Mexican. Two Mexicans can sell, but it doesn't sell like a Mexican and a black guy, or a Mexican and a Cuban, a Mexican and a Puerto Rican. Those sell historically very well.
Yeah, for sure.
It's all a money game at this point.
Yeah, whatever.
In a lot of ways. And that's
Logan Paul and KSI just fought each other. They're not even fighters. They're like podcasters.
See, this is the thing.
You're going to see a lot more of that.
This is the thing is that, the sport. I was just saying. Well, we're not talking about jiu-jitsu, but we're talking about professional promotional sports like the UFC, Bellator. The scale's been tipped towards the money as opposed to the heart of the sport. The time whenever you were working for the UFC, Frank, it was so much about the sport itself. It wasn't about promotion. And it grew out of that. And I would say, I feel like in some ways the soul of the UFC has left it. And it's gone for the money.
Well, fight promoters are always looking for the transcendent personality, the personality that can transcend just the diehard fan, right? It's the personality that can capture the imagination of the mainstream. I mean, I was having this conversation with a buddy earlier, Demetrious Johnson, right? Not too long ago, you could have made an argument, 2 years ago, Demetrious Johnson was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. But he couldn't really move that pay-per-view.
Wasn't marketable.
He did a lot. He did a lot of things excellently technically, but he could never transcend and capture the imagination of the American fan. Now, so if you're a promoter, I'm not saying UFC did this, but if you're a promoter, you're thinking, wow, can somebody come and beat this guy? Somebody with more personality, somebody with more charisma, more chutzpah, so that we can actually sell some pay-per-views here. I mean, that might occur to you as a pay-per-view person. Now, what's interesting about that is, should we blame the promoters who love the trash talking now and the pro wrestling style antics? Should we blame them? Or should we blame the fans and say, hey, mainstream fans, Why are you such a sucker for the trash talking? Why can't you appreciate a guy who's respectful, who's humble, who's technically awesome, like a Demetrious Johnson? Demetrious Johnson had to go over to Asia, where they sort of want to see where they sort of value this traditional martial arts ethos of respect. He had to go over there, but again, instead of blaming the promoters, what's interesting is, should we blame the promoters or should we blame the fan base? Because we get to speak with our wallet. Like we say, hey, mainstream fans, can you finally just appreciate somebody who's a pure fighter, who's a good guy, who's technically awesome? Can you finally can you pay to watch that guy?
Well, okay. I got to jump in here then, because I got something to say about that in a way. Oh no. So I'll say it in terms of. First, I'm going to give I'll give two examples. One's outside the context. The first one is the size of the Marine Corps or the war fighters. I was an air traffic controller. Air conditioning, easy goes. I was in the wing. Swing with the wing, as we would say. It's good going. But it takes about 9 support Marines for every infantry Marine. A lot of you just saw where they shipped in another 100 Marines out of Kuwait to reinforce the embassy guard there this past week, and then to back them up, what do? We send 82nd Airborne, 750. And then we send the rest of the battalion. Obviously, there's a force projection going on there. But that ethos, the warrior ethos, it's not designed, and I will say the alchemy of of what it takes, what it changes you inside, which is within all of us. The alchemy, that change that happens, is different than what is the casual. It is what the casual fan base is. The casual fan, they see a piece of them. They want to see a bit of that. They want to see a bit of that warrior ethos, but then they also want to be entertained. So what's different about it is, Jordan, whenever you talk about make something from nothing, your alchemy of watching Eddie Bravo's videos and finding everything out free on the net. Everything's out there. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. And the difference between watching and consuming as opposed to producing is massive. It's that, it's that 10-to-1 ratio in a way, or 1,000 to 1 or more, to go from consuming to actually producing, and then to being at that elite level. So what I'm trying to say is, the culture itself, the consumer, I would say the Western culture of consumer, doesn't have that appreciation of what it's like to be in that space, to be on the mats 5, 6, 7 years intensely, like Gordon Ryan was, until he got to his points where now he's pivoting off. He's in that he hit that inflection point, and he was like, I had a vacation. Now it's time for me to inflect or to pivot off of where he was.
I don't mean to cut you off, Noah, but
Yeah.
my phone just said it has 10%, and my headset is plugged into the jack, so I can't charge it and talk at the same time. So I might be, I don't know how long 10% is going to last me. It should last me another 5-10 minutes.
Okay, great. Because I know, I know we were going to cut this off in about 15 minutes.
Awesome.
So when you cut off, we'll shut this down.
Let's talk till it dies.
So what I'm saying here is the product is starting to align itself with its consumer, and that's what's happened. I believe it's aligned itself with the consumer. The mass consumer. We talk about that base of 18 to 45. It's within all of us to want to be a warrior. We descended from warriors. All of us. We're survivors. Was the same DNA, but it takes something special.
Listen, at the end of the day, the technical brilliance of some of these fighters is lost on the mainstreamer. They don't appreciate it. They don't know what to look for. They don't the subtleties that we like. Everybody understands. I'm going to kick your butt. Your mama, this, whatever. Everybody understands that. And if you saw that in a grocery store, two people arguing, you would turn and look at it. I mean, at the proverbial four corners. And so, people are just genetic, just primally wired to. And Conor does not. I mean, Conor's got 21 wins. 19 of those are knockouts or TKOs in the first 2 rounds. So he is great at predicting the round. He does deliver most of the time. He's lost 4 times. But at the end of the day, people love. I mean, Masvidal's got like 10 losses or something like that, right? I mean, he's a phenomenal fighter. He's hitting his stride now. He'll fight anybody. He's an elite warrior. But Masvidal's got 10. I mean, it's 10 losses. So what people love is that personality and that talk. Even Eddie Bravo, even the charisma, what Jordan's talking about. Eddie Bravo, it's not just the system. It's not just how he was an innovator with that style, with the words and description. He renames things and how he teaches it different. He's a different dude. But he's a mesmerizing, charismatic dude. And that matters, and that captures people's imagination. There's other grapplers out there like Gabe Moraes. There's people that are phenomenal at jiu-jitsu, and they have very few Twitter followers, and they don't make a lot of money because they don't have that personality. And the world is just unfair in that way. And the UFC, which is a business which was bought for $4.2 billion, you know it. You know the venture capitalists in Noah. They want their money back. They want to double or triple their money. And how are they going to do that? They're going to do that with some guys that can kick butt with some great fights, and if they can talk some smack along the way too, well, we know that the mainstream fan likes that and they can do that. And so, if there's something wrong with most of our fans, do we need to retrain our fan base rather than just hold the promoter's feet to the fire? Should we say, hey, to customers, hey, why don't you guys stop being so stupid and wisen up and start watching the Demetrious Johnsons of the world? Right? What do we do with that? Because the customer is speaking with their wallet. When the customer says, man, I love this trash talking, whatever, in America, which is where the big money is for any businesses. America is where the big money is. And the American customer loves what? The fight customer loves what? Pro Wrestling 101.
Do you see the UFC going to China?
Weren't they in China? They got a Chinese champion now.
Yeah. So I just turned that on you there because
I've been to China. Don't get me started. We don't have enough time to talk about China. I've been to China.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring up when you talk about ONE FC and other fight promotions, that base, those consumers, and how the sport, it's selling a different product.
Okay, well go listen. You're going to be in China one day. You and Jordan will both be in China. When you go there, I want you to turn on a professional basketball game when you're there and watch the lack of defense. The defense is so bad, it has to be intentional. Like somebody from the league office told them, like, dude, don't play any defense. Dude, legit. You can put me in a game in China, pro, and I'll score. There's no team. I'll score. If you leave me in for 20 minutes, I guarantee you I score.
Oh, wow.
Nobody plays defense.
I'm going to have to watch this.
I'll dart and dive. I'll jack up a 3. I'll drive the lane and get a layup. They play no D. They play so little D.
Well,
intentionally not play defense.
Wow.
So my thing is, everybody's got
shots fired.
They don't.
Hold on. You're talking about China. I just finished I just finished Simon Winchester's book, The Pacific, and it got into a little bit of the Chinese military strategy, where their thought is, well, we're just going to build islands, and we're stretching out our anti-access aerial denial strategy. And so the U.S. goes, oh, then we need a space command. That's I have to explain what that means, but China plays the long
I
game.
was treated very well in China, by the way. It exceeded my expectations. I was literally, I mean, if you ever want to be treated like a rock star, go to China. They will treat you like a rock star. They'll look at you like, kids will look at you like this magical American guy with superpowers. You'll be amazed at how well you're treated by a lot of people.
China as an entity plays the long game, and we're looking at 4-year election cycles. They're looking at 100-year plans, and so it's interesting to see. So what I was saying about the Marine Corps, and then about on the mats, what it takes, the alchemy it takes to get there, is the story, is the entertainment that the Western consumer enjoys. But getting back to why, because that's inspirational. It's inspirational, but is it enough to get you moving and stay moving? Or do you find yourself in midlife crisis, and that's where you go, okay, I don't like this. From my wife's studies and discussion with her, psychologists say that life it's kind of nice in the beginning because you have freedom without limits, freedom without bounds. You don't have to worry about the rent, and you don't have to worry about things like that. And then it gradually sucks, and just the suck factor just gets worse and worse and worse. So it's kind of like a U, where it's just bad, and then it comes back around. And so supposedly, Frank, there's hope for us, because they say that it starts to improve, and it comes back around, and it just starts getting better and better. So there's this weird sideways U where it's great, and it sucks, and then it comes back, and it's phenomenal.
Well, let's put this.
Hopefully, UFC does too.
Let's put this in perspective. The UFC. Remember, the UFC was almost dead. 15 years ago. Okay, it was close to death 15 years ago.
It was a teenager.
We wouldn't be sitting here. All the proliferation of even wrestling right now. Wrestling has benefited from the UFC. There's more people in wrestling now. There's tons of girls wrestling now, right? I mean, wrestling's got record number of people going to wrestling.
Greco-Roman wrestling, you mean?
The UFC really did capture the imaginations to where even those of us who train jiu-jitsu, we really in a lot of ways been riding the coattails of the UFC, because it went, they go in all these different markets, and people are like, oh my God, this isn't terrible, I actually like this. And then is there a jiu-jitsu gym where I can sign up? Is there a Muay Thai thing? Can I put my kid in wrestling? So we have to look at
helps all the other martial arts.
Yeah, there is some, we could question and say, man, why don't people love the pure side of it, the humility and all these martial arts values, and that's being lost? And that's a great conversation, and there's a lot of validity to that. But on the other hand, we have to look at the whole monster, which is, man, I watched the card with Amanda Nunes and the most recent card. That card was really good, and you still see fighters lay it on the line. You still see fighters try to kill each other and then hug each other and say, hey, I want to thank so-and-so for bringing out the best in me. Even Conor, after he knocked out Jose Aldo, as much trash talk, he tried initially to be friendly, but Jose wasn't in the mood because he had just woken up and was kind of like pissed off and realized what happened. Conor was trying to throw him an olive branch right after I saw it. I just watched that 2 days ago. Like, even he was trying to be like, hey, Jose, good job, whatever. And so let's not lose sight of the fact that most of the fighters are humble. They do hug each other. They are respectful. It's just that at the very top where the big money is, we're seeing, more and more of them say, look, the big money is if I win the fights, if I can talk some smack. then that's how I make a lot of money. But it's not all. There's 500 fighters in the UFC, and most of them are humble. Most of them hug their opponent, and most of them are respectful. And the UFC overall, we have to say, for those of us that train martial arts, it's easier to train in pretty much every market now because the UFC has spread, and that has made it so that, you know, martial arts and jiu-jitsu academies and wrestling and Muay Thai has spread with it. And the UFC, whether people like it, UFC's played a significant role in that. I think
Well,
you can agree with that. Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan.
What do you think?
Before we lose you on your battery power.
Sure. The UFC is a massive deal. Why jiu-jitsu has gotten so much bigger. When I first started training jiu-jitsu, there wasn't even any jiu-jitsu gyms in Henderson. The only one was Sunset Boxing MMA. The other places I had to go to Las Vegas to train. That's why my parents would only take me to Sunset Boxing MMA. Now there's 10th Planet, Dunham's. There's a Gracie Baja in Henderson. There's all sorts of places in Henderson now. And I
Chris
think that's
Engel.
Chris Ingles. I think that's directly because of the UFC and the rise of people like Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor and these superstars that have mainstreamed the sport and became like a household name. Before, like, people didn't even know what really jiu-jitsu was. You know what I mean? People still to this day, unless you train jiu-jitsu, the only reason you really know what jiu-jitsu is if you may have heard it, like one of the fighters talking about it, or like you may think it's like karate or something. But like a lot of people, the only way they find out about jiu-jitsu still to this day is like the UFC. Joe Rogan Experience has helped a little bit, but the UFC is the main one that I feel like has really helped that has helped the popularity for jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and other even like wrestling, just all martial arts in general. I think has really benefited a lot from the rise of the UFC. Whether the rise of the UFC has been like as traditional and as good as it could have been, or it's been more WWE rise, either way, it's been rising, and that's been helping the other sports.
Yeah, because again, Noah, you've got some coaches that were UFC fighters. Jordan, you've trained with a lot of professional fighters and UFC fighters. I've trained with a lot of UFC fighters and professionals. And the reality is the vast majority of them are very respectful when they come in there in the gym environment. They actually do exemplify a lot of those activities.
Oh, definitely.
It's just it doesn't always make it on camera. It doesn't sell on camera. But the reality is most of them, even Rhonda in her training environment, and her coaching environment was very respectful.
Oh, I'm sure she's very nice.
If you could see how nice.
Create a villain. She would create the other opponent as a villain in order to pump herself up and get her head in that space where she thought she needed to be to win the fight.
If you could see how nice actually Gordon Ryan is, if I just knew him from his social media, I would hate him.
He's a very nice guy.
He's a very nice guy. He's a very nice guy.
Chael Sonnen is a sweetheart. Chael Sonnen is a very nice guy. One of my favorites.
I'm sure Chael's very nice.
Very nice guy.
Yeah. Well, while I've got you, I wanted to go through some things today, but we didn't have a chance today. I think that this was a little bit more of our backgrounds, introduction. I will say that we have a website coming soon. Everyman BJJ. It's coming. It's incremental. It's incremental. Every week every show we get a little bit more. Just wanted to throw that in before. Oh, I lost you. I don't hear you. Don't hear you.
Lost the audio.
Lost the audio on Frank. Say something, Frank. No? Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah, we lost him. That's unfortunate. Well, Jordan, it's my pleasure.
Oh, there I am.
What'd you do?
Oh,
sorry.
there he goes.
See?
Hey.
As I say, every week we get better.
We all have to agree to stay alive, and then we can do this again next week. That's good. If we can all just agree on that.
Yeah. Everyone's scheduled good for next week. 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern.
Yep, sounds good. And my mom's gonna let me keep these, so this will work.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll work on my incremental improvements. besides working a lot this week. Take care, gentlemen. I enjoyed
right.
everyone's time today.
Have a great
Take
week,
care,
guys.
man. Have a great
All right.
day, dude.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.